Hello and welcome to the latest edition of On The Whistle. Just me today, I'm afraid, so you'll have to put up with me for 10 minutes or so, but I reckon you'll probably be alright with that. I reckon you'll manage because Sunderland's start of the season just continues to get better and better. 4 from 4. Unfortunately, the clean sheet record is gone. Luke O'Nien scored a late own goal, which he was absolutely devastated about, but I don't think we can hold that against him because it was another excellent performance from Luke O'Nien. Completely dominated his physical battle with Christian Sadie up front for Portsmouth, and actually I thought that was the platform for the win, really. Portsmouth were pretty toothless. I thought Sunderland stood up to the physical challenge really well. And the first half wasn't a great game. There wasn't a huge amount of quality from either side. But I did think Sunderland had the better moments. And although they get really fortunate with a comical own goal where Miranda has a shot saved, the defender then goes to clear it and just basically rifles it off his teammate and bounces over the line. It was the best move of the first half. So I think Sunderland just about deserved their lead, albeit they were a little bit fortunate. And then the second half really summed up what the identity of this team is under Lebris. It's not necessarily about dominating possession. It's not necessarily about controlling the game with the ball. It's about winning duels. It's about being in a good defensive shape and counter-attacking at pace. The second and third goals in their own ways are just an absolute joy. The second one, Riggs spins away, finds Roberts, little cross. Miranda has a shot which Brown nicks on the line. I'm going to give him credit. He couldn't have been sure that wasn't going to get cleared, so he had to steal it, but Miranda will be disappointed. And then the third goal, an absolute crunching 50-50 from Rigg, which he wins. Miranda carries the ball, tees at Mundell, who thumps home, and there you go, 3 points. Really, really exciting times. I think we all know that it's going to be really hard for Sunderland to sustain a top 2 push over the course of the season because of the quality of the other teams and the budgets that they've got. But you have to say that they've deserved all of their results so far. I thought they thoroughly deserved the win again. And again, Anthony Patterson's not really had anything to do. And that is such a strong foundation. If your goalkeeper's not really been called into action, then I just think that is such a strong platform from which you can then go on and show your attacking quality. So really impressed with what they're doing at the moment. Like I say, Lebris seems to have... Sunderland went terrible defensively last year. They had a decent record. Lebris has managed to keep that, but he's managed to add some attacking stuff to this team. They're such a threat on the break, and it's a joy to watch. Obviously, we don't know how they'll respond when they have to chase a game. So far, they've been able to manage it and counter-attack with a goal advantage, or maybe a couple of goals advantage, which is a huge benefit. But yeah, you can't be anything but positive about this team at the moment. What a joy to watch them. I'm going to get straight into your questions because I've got to go and catch a train. So let's go through some of them. Camtastrophe says, what's been the most surprising part of this brilliant start? Miranda's emergence, ? Yeah, I have to agree with that. I mean, I think anyone who watches the On The Whistles, I said through pre-season that I thought you could see someone Miranda. I think you could see taking a big step forward. He clearly is a really intelligent player and he understands what Lebris wants from him in terms of the pressing. That ultimately is the reason why he's in the team. That's why Lebris has put so much faith in him. But I think you could see as well that his movement was really good and he had something about him. I thought today was his best performance in the Sunderland shirt by a country distance. He didn't get the goal. As I say, Brown took that one, which he probably had to do off the line. But I thought his all-round contribution, his link-up play, we have to put it into context as always. We talked about this last week with all the players that Burnley had missing. Portsmouth were missing most of their centre-halves. They were playing a right-back and centre-back. And you could tell that there wasn't a huge amount of familiarity in their partnerships. And they were uncertain, I think, when those balls were played through the middle. But I thought Miranda was a constant thorn in their side. And I think he has been, one of the finds of the season so far, really. We've talked about the strikers, and correctly so, because we know that Miranda's going to struggle to do for 46 games physically. That's so demanding. But he's in this team on merit at the moment, and I'm just really impressed with what he's done. And so I would probably put that as the most surprising aspect of what we've seen so far this season. I think probably the other one would be, I probably didn't think Lebris would be able to build this kind of style so quickly. I think it is a bit different to what we saw under Mowbray, for example, in that Sunderland are happy to have 40-45% possession, but that doesn't mean that they're not hurting teams. They're just doing things a different way, and I'm surprised at how solid they are defensively, how good the structure is. I think that's been the most pleasant surprise so far, so hopefully that answers that question. A couple of you actually asked about Bennett, Adil Aushish and Abdullah Bar, who it was a really strange one today because it was a really, really young bench. Obviously the 4 players signed last night weren't able to come into the squad, which then meant you had a bit of a in-between bench where there's loads of young players on it. Timo Tutierov, Ben Crompton, Tommy Watson obviously has been on the bench before, Harrison Jones as well, and there was a couple of other academy players travelled. I actually asked Lebris about this after the game, so I can give you a little bit of insight on that. Basically what happened here was, so last week it was just selection, so Aushish and Bari was quite strong in his message to them. They had to work hard and prove they deserved a place in the squad. This week he made quite clear that basically they hadn't travelled with the team yesterday because it was possible that they were going to leave the club. So they basically took the decision just to travel with the players who they knew would be available and to leave those players who could leave at home so they were in the right place and could move quickly if they needed to. Now that obviously tells us they've got a lot of work to do, because the fact that they were potentially going to leave the club tells you where they are in the pecking order. So I think that there's a huge amount of work for them to do over the next few weeks, and clearly, you know, the players in the squad today are ahead of them. But yeah, just to say that while last week was purely a selection thing, especially without Shushan Bar, this week it was a little bit more complex than that, and it was partially because there was a chance that they might get a move and it was deemed best just to leave them at home. Gibble says, should we take anything from Isidore coming on from Mundell at left wing rather than Meander at centre forward? I don't think we should read too much into this. I think Isidore has been signed primarily as a striker. He's definitely coming here to play primarily as a striker. I might be wrong, but I honestly think the reason why he came on at left wing was because Lebris didn't want to take Meander off. I think Meander was playing so well, and I think he really deserved to go, and you could tell his confidence was up, you could tell in his body language was so strong. And my gut tells me that Lebris wanted to keep him on the pitch a little bit longer, and that was actually the longest he's played so far this season. I think it was about the 88th minute when Rooston came on for Meander. I'm not saying Isidore's not going to play off the left. I think especially because Sunderland didn't sign another winger right at the end of sort of the transfer window, I think you will definitely see Isidore play that role. But I would be surprised. I still think he might play more minutes up front over the course of the season. I honestly think today the main factor was just how good Meander was playing up front. I think, you know, Lebris felt it would have been really harsh to take him off, and I completely agreed with that, and it was another step forward for Meander. Thanks for your question, much appreciated. Let's have a look at the other ones. Mark says, essentially the same team as last season, minus our best player. At what point should I let my annoyance over the manager debacle go? Also, just how good is RLB? Does anyone genuinely see this coming? Well, I can put my hands up and say that I didn't see this coming. I mean, I think what's really interesting about it is Lebris sort of had two really contrasting seasons, didn't he, at Lorient? One season where they overachieved and one season where they underachieved. I think what was consistent across the two sort of seasons was they were a super aggressive attacking team, but they conceded a lot of chances and they conceded a lot of goals. So I really thought we were going to have quite an open, you know, an exciting style, but one that sort of where Sunderland were quite gung-ho actually. And it's been the complete opposite of that, hasn't it? And that's, I really did not see this coming. The pressing sort of coaching and the structure is incredibly impressive so far, and I think he has definitely exceeded my expectations on that front. The other thing I would say, Mark, as well, is I think his temperament is perfect. He is so detached from all the noise and all the fuss that goes with Sunderland, and I think that, you know, we are all really emotional when it comes to Sunderland because we love it so much, and it's what makes the club so special. But I also think that it's important for the manager to be able to be a bit detached from that and to not get sucked into some of that. And I think Lebris's temperament is, you know, I think is really helping him, and I think it's helped him through this tricky first month in terms of the transfer window being open. I think we've seen his calmness. In terms of the manager debacle, I don't know. I think we can let it go in terms of, we always said towards the end of last season that, you know, what happened last season towards the end of last season wasn't good enough. But it would be worth it just about if it gave them the time and space to get the right person in. Now everybody understands that Sunderland went for Will Still, you know, Lebris was on their shortlist, but they went for Will Still first and foremost. So I think you can retain a bit of healthy scepticism probably about, you know, the whole process, especially off the back of the Mick Beale one, which really didn't work. So yeah, I would say that I can understand a little bit maybe of wariness still, but I think we have to say at this point that so far Lebris, as a coach certainly and as a tactician, looks to be a really, really good pickup. So fingers crossed that can continue. So Billy says, really interesting question, how does Dan Neil get back in? It's a really interesting question because I was actually thinking during the first half, I think they're really missing Dan Neil's progressive passing, the way he plays through the press, the way he can change a defensive situation into a counter-attack. I actually thought someone missed that in the first half. So my instinct is to say I think he'll come straight back in. But the second half, I think, you know, the midfield three worked really well. Brown had another really good game, solid pick-up. You can't drop Chris Rigg because his performances are unbelievable at the moment. His second half in particular, I mean, that kid can be anything. It's scary to watch what he can do. And a word for Job as well. I mean, Job played a completely different role today at the base of midfield, but I thought he did it really, really well, really mature performance. So yeah, it's a good question. I think Daniel probably does come in against Plymouth at the base of midfield. I think the reality is that while you can't drop Rigg at the moment, you are going to have to drop him at some point. He cannot play 90 minutes for 46 games. And so I wouldn't worry too much about that. I think rotation's inevitable, and the nice thing is there are in-form options. And I really like the Samed signing. I think that is such a clever addition, gives something completely different, a genuine, if you like, Corey Evans replacement. And there's going to be games where that discipline, where that natural holding midfielder is going to be so important. I'm so pleased that Sunderland have done that. Thanks very much for the question. I think I'm going to leave it there because I'm going to go and get my train. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully you're enjoying everything at the moment with Sunderland top of the league. We'll be back on Monday or Tuesday with a podcast, so keep an eye on that. We'll announce it. It'll be on all your podcast feeds, but you can watch it live on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook and all that as well. I imagine we'll get right into all the striker stuff, deadline day, the transfer window as a whole, but I'm not going to talk too much about that. Thanks very much for watching as ever. How are the lads?